Alright everybody, so a friend of mine asked me a few days ago, or I guess a week ago, that what videos should she recommend to a friend who's interested in starting gardening? Great question. I never even thought about it. So I've been thinking about it, and what I told her right off the bat was I don't really know, because I haven't done any videos geared specifically to beginner gardeners because I'm a beginner gardener. So I hadn't even thought of it that way. But over the last 4 or 5 days, I've been thinking about this, and I've come up with a list of tips for beginner gardeners from a beginner gardener. And I'm excited to share these tips. Now, these are my opinion, strictly my opinion. They're in no particular order except for tip number 1, which would be the last tip. Yeah. Let's get to tip number 7. Okay, tip number 7, expect to sweat. Now, I know that might sound silly. Of course you're going to sweat in the garden. No, you are going to sweat in your garden. And what I like to say is you are going to toil in your soil. I know that sounds silly, but you are going to get infected with the gardening bug, especially if this becomes a passion for you. So I didn't expect to get as sweaty and as dirty as I actually get when I'm doing this. And I know that might sound silly, but you really sweat a lot out here, and you are going to get very dirty. So tip number 7, be prepared to sweat, which that means ensure that you're always hydrating with water or Gatorades or something, not beer. Be real. Hydrate the proper way, because depending on where you are, the heat can get you, especially here where I am, zone 9A, here in the Houston area. The heat is no joke, especially in the next 4 months, 5 months or so. It's coming. So tip 7, prepare to sweat. Okay, tip number 6, you want to find quality seeds and supplies. And what I mean by this is, if you're going to spend your money, because gardening isn't cheap, it's not expensive either if you do it the right way, but it's not cheap. You're going to spend money. So if you're going to spend your money on gardening, make sure that you're researching companies and you're getting quality seeds and supplies. Now, right here is a list of seed companies that I use all the time. Now, Baker Creek has been the best company that I have personally used because their germination rate is through the roof. But the other companies here are great also. But the important thing is for you to find a company that speaks to you. So research these companies and try them. Now, as far as supplies are concerned, that's just anything you're going to spend your money on. Do the research and make sure that you're reading the reviews. Quality seeds and supplies, tip number 6. Okay, tip number 5, do your research. Whether you're watching YouTubers, or you're reading books, or you're on a gardening community online, or you've got a friend at a master gardener at a garden supply center or a nursery, you got a family member who has been gardening their whole life. Whatever it is, whatever method you use to research, do your research. Get as much knowledge as you can before you sow your seeds, or before you go and buy a little plant from a big box store. Do your research. I can't stress that enough. I started researching gardening about 2 to 3 months before I actually started gardening. So do your research and be as prepared as you can. That's tip number 5. Okay, tip number 4, don't get discouraged. Now, I went through this last year. I got to a point where it was, man, it's just too hot. I can't go outside, everything's dying. I can't get anything to grow. I don't know what I'm doing. And then all of a sudden, stuff started growing. And what I thought was dead wasn't dead. And the seeds that I thought weren't going to germinate, germinated. So don't get discouraged, no matter what. If you get slammed with pests, which I got nailed with last year. I think I had every pest there is. I mean, of course I didn't, but that's how it felt. I mean, I got hit with cucumber beetles, army worms, tomato hornworms, aphids like crazy. I got hit with a lot of pests last year. And I was upset. I was discouraged there for a while, but I just kept going. And what you want to do is ensure that you understand when you start this, you are going to have ups and downs. And the downs can be pretty bad, but those ups are amazing. When you can walk out of your door and go outside to your garden and pick a vegetable off of your plant that you sowed and you've nurtured, it's an amazing feeling. So, tip number 4, do not get discouraged. Keep pushing. Tip number 3, start small. Don't come out into your backyard having never gardened, never prepped a garden, never done any of this and think, hey, I'm just gonna go huge and everything's gonna be great. Well, it's not. You're gonna have growing pains. So my advice is start small. I started with some containers and then moved up from there. I turned this back fence line here into a flower bed, which then I transformed into a vegetable garden. And then I built this raised bed right here, this cinder block bed. And then that cinder block bed. And then all the other stuff that I've done that I did over the winter. So start small. Don't go huge, because this might not be something for you. Just be real. Not everyone gets this bug. It doesn't get under, gardening might not get under your skin like it has for me. I'm addicted to this. I love it. I think about gardening all the time, what I could do different, what I can share, what I've learned, what I've failed at. I always want to keep growing in this because it's all I think about. I think about gardening all the time. So until you know whether this is going to become a passion for you and it's not just a hobby, make sure you start small. Get your feet wet. Get just a little bit of dirt under your fingernails and see if you like it or not. And then slowly move up from there. But tip number 3, start small. Tip number 2, be realistic. And what I mean by be realistic is don't expect to start and to have the greenest thumb in the world and just grow everything. You have to be realistic in the fact that plants are going to die. You are going to get hit with pests. Setbacks are going to come. And this kind of goes hand in hand with don't get discouraged, but because you need to be realistic in what your goals are. If your goal is to grow cucumbers just so you can pickle them, then focus on just cucumbers. But part of the research would be knowing what plants to plant with cucumbers in an organic way to ward off pests. That's the research part. So these all go hand in hand, but you want to be realistic in whatever your expectations are for what you are going to do. If you have a patio and you're in an apartment, well, your realistic expectations could be doing a container garden. Or if you have a small backyard like I do here, maybe your realistic expectation would be just having a small cinder block garden, one, and then see where it goes from there. But whatever your goals are for your garden, just be realistic when you set those goals. That is tip number 2. Okay, tip number 1 is the most important to me because it's the foundation for your garden, and that is your soil. If you're going to spend money on anything premium, if you're not going to actually make your own soil, then you want to spend that money on your foundation. And I think, for me, in my opinion, your soil is the most important thing for your garden. Your plants aren't going to grow if your soil isn't healthy. Your goals and your expectations aren't going to get met if your foundation is shaky. So, soil, to me, is the number 1 tip that I would give anyone. Ensure that your soil is the best soil that it can be. If you need to amend it right away, then amend it. If you have the time to put in a fall garden and then put compost over it for 2 or 3 months before planting, then do it. Preparation is also a key in your soil, but to me, the soil is the number 1 tip that I'd give anyone. Your foundation of your garden is your soil. Okay, and I have a bonus tip here. Understand that this can become very overwhelming. Just the thought of everything that you're going to plant and everything that you have to do to prepare to plant and then harvest and nurture and amend and look for bugs, and everything that you have to do as a gardener can become incredibly overwhelming. But hey, fight through it. Fight through it. Believe me, it's worth it in the end. When you're getting those big harvests, or when you can bring your grandchild out and teach them what you're doing, or have them pick a strawberry and see their face light up when they bite into that fresh strawberry that you planted, it's worth it. Okay, everybody, so those are my 7 tips with one bonus tip that I think all beginner gardeners should know. Now, if you're a gardener and you have different beginner tips, then please put them in the comments below. I will absolutely do a follow-up video on this topic if I need to, but when I sat down and I really started thinking about what tips I wish I had read about or learned about or known about, these are the top 7 that popped out to me right away. I hope everyone learned something from this video, and if you know a beginner gardener or someone who has just mentioned, I might start a garden, share this video with them. Like the video. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, please consider doing so. And as always, everybody, shine bright and harvest hard. Bye. Okay, and I have a bonus tip. And I can't remember what it is. It could be overlooked. Okay.